In 1912, Villisca, Iowa, was the kind of town where no one locked their doors at night. That June morning, one house on East 2nd Street was completely, unnaturally quiet. 8 people went to sleep inside that house. Not one of them woke up. 4 of those 8 were children. The youngest was only 5 years old. 2 of those children weren't even from the Moore family. They were visiting for the night. By 8 a.m., neighbor Mary Peckham knew something was wrong. She couldn't say what. Every curtain and every window was pulled shut. By 9, she was asking her husband to try the door. The front door was locked. No one in Villisca ever locked their front door. She sent for Marshal Hank Horton at 9:30. He would arrive in minutes. He would never recover. Marshal Horton had seen accidents, fires, disputes. Nothing in 30 years prepared him for this. The back door was unlocked. He pushed it open and stepped inside the silence. He stood at the bottom of the stairs. Something in the air told him not to call out. He smelled it before he saw anything. A smell he had no name for yet. He pushed open the door. What he found inside would haunt every person who ever heard his testimony. Josiah and Sarah Moore were dead in their bed. They had never been given a chance. The axe was left on the floor. Someone had covered its blade with a piece of cloth. The children's room, 4 of them. He stood in the door and could not move forward. 2 more in the guest room, Lena and Ina Stillinger. They were 12 and 8. He walked outside. He needed to confirm that the rest of the world was still there. He shook his head at Mary Peckham. But word was already moving. Within an hour, half the town of Villisca was standing in the street outside the Moore house. Before any investigator arrived, hundreds of townspeople had already walked through the house. Footprints, fingerprints, trace evidence, all of it buried under the boots of Villisca's curiosity. Every lamp in the house had burned through the night. Someone had stayed until they ran dry. In the kitchen, food. Someone had eaten in that house after the family was asleep. Horton sent for outside investigators. He knew Villisca couldn't solve this alone. The county coroner arrived by afternoon. He would confirm what everyone in town already knew. By nightfall, the Villisca Axe Murders were front page across all of Iowa. The country followed. The Moores were a respectable family. Josiah sold farm equipment. The children went to school every morning. Josiah Moore was a successful businessman. He had recently left the employ of a powerful local man. The night before the murders, Reverend Kelly led a children's prayer meeting in that house. He was seen leaving. But the train he supposedly caught, records would later raise doubts. State investigators arrived from Des Moines on June 11th. They were already 24 hours behind. Investigators found a scene so compromised it was, in their words, almost beyond reading. The ceiling bore gouge marks. The killer had worked in a very small space with a very long axe. Every victim had been covered, the bedclothes drawn up over them, by the killer. After the act, the bedroom mirror had been covered. The killer didn't want to see what they had done. In the cellar, a slab of bacon with a slice removed. Someone had provisioned themselves for a wait. Investigators believed someone had hidden in that house before the family returned home from church. The attic dust told a story. Someone had waited in the dark. Witnesses confirmed Reverend Kelly had led a prayer meeting at the Moore house that evening. He knew the layout. The train Kelly claimed to have taken, investigators found the timing impossible to confirm with certainty. Frank Jones, Josiah Moore's former employer, and possibly his bitterest rival. His name kept coming up. Moore had left Jones's employment to start a competing business. Jones had not forgiven this. A third name, William Mansfield, a traveling man, linked to other axe murders in neighboring states. Joe Stillinger had let his daughter sleep over. He would spend the rest of his life inside that decision. Frank Jones hired Pinkerton detectives, privately. His stated goal, find the killer. His actual goal, unclear. 3 separate investigative bodies were now working the same case. None of them was sharing information. Weeks became months. The house sat empty. The case produced leads, but no arrests. Villisca locked its doors for the first time. Sleep never came easy there again. In 1917, Reverend Kelly confessed to the murders. Then, days later, he took it all back. 5 years after the murders, not a single arrest had held. Every lead had unraveled. Jones's private correspondence suggested he had known about Josiah's business plans before the public did. Rumors spoke of a relationship, Josiah and a woman connected to Frank Jones's family. Unverified, but persistent. Kelly preached his Sunday sermon 6 days after the murders. Congregants said he seemed different. There was a 2-hour gap in Kelly's alibi that no train schedule could explain. The axe belonged to the Moore family. It was taken from their own barn. Someone knew exactly where to find it. The Pinkertons were eventually directed away from Jones and toward Kelly by Jones himself. Kelly's first written confession was detailed and specific. It contained information only the killer should know. 3 days after his confession, Kelly claimed he had been coerced. He denied everything. Those who met Kelly described the same thing, a face that told you what it wanted you to see. Hyper-realistic, 8K, cinematic lighting, shot on 35mm lens, noir thriller atmosphere. William Mansfield had a documented history of violence, and he had been moving through Iowa that summer. The Villisca method matched 4 other cold case axe murders. No investigator ever formally connected them. Villisca split in 2. Some believed Jones hired the killer, some believed Kelly was the killer. Neither side forgave the other. Mary Peckham looked at that house every day for the rest of her life. She never stopped looking. Small things were still being found months later. Each one asked the same question. How long had he been there? Between leaving the Moore house and catching his train, 1 unaccounted hour. 1 hour was enough. They knew in their bones what had happened. They just couldn't prove it in court. The Pinkerton report named Kelly as the probable killer. Probable was not enough. 8 graves, 8 names, and in 112 years, not one has been given justice. Kelly's first trial began in 1917, 5 years after the murders. Iowa held its breath. The prosecution cited the confession, the alibi gap, and Kelly's detailed knowledge of the scene. The defense argued a coerced confession, an unreliable witness, a man broken by interrogation. Kelly testified calmly. He looked each juror in the eye. Several later said they believed him. The jury could not agree. Hung. Mistrial. The case returned to where it had always lived. Nowhere. The second trial began months later. The weariness was larger. Investigators presented the burned lamp evidence. Someone had spent the entire night inside that house. Not guilty. The jury took less than an hour. Kelly straightened his coat and walked out a free man. Horton watched him walk. He never spoke publicly about what he believed. He didn't have to. Kelly lived for decades after the acquittal. He continued his ministry. He was never charged again. 2 documents in the same handwriting. One naming him the killer, one denying it. Both authentic, neither resolved. Mansfield was questioned and released. He was never charged with the Villisca murders. He died in 1951. Frank Jones was never charged. He continued his business for many years. He died in 1944. 3 men, 3 full lives lived. 8 people who had none. The math of injustice, unresolved. The house is still there. It has never been demolished. People pay to spend the night inside it. It operates now as a paranormal tourism site. People sleep in the rooms where the family was killed. The Moore children were between 5 and 11 years old. They had simply never gone to school again. That Sunday evening, Josiah Moore walked his children to a prayer meeting at his own house, his last walk. Sarah Moore had set the breakfast table before bed. She intended to use it in the morning. Lena and Ina Stillinger had asked permission to stay overnight with the Moore children. Their father said yes. The Villisca Axe Murders officially went cold. No conviction was ever recorded in the case. Hank Horton died in 1932. People who knew him said he never stopped thinking about that house. Villisca, Iowa still exists. The town is ordinary in every way. except for the house at the end of the street. The whole block was sleeping. A lamp burned inside, and in a town that trusted everyone, no one saw. What drove someone to that house on that night? What made 8 lives collide with one man's darkness? The mirror is still covered. Visitors are told not to remove the cloth. No one ever does. The axe is in a glass case now, preserved, labeled, looked at by thousands of visitors every year. 2 families, 8 dead, 2 communities of grief that no verdict ever healed. Survivors who were children in 1912 carried Villisca inside them for the rest of their lives. The town's welcome sign mentions it, a population of 1,200 and a murder house from 1912. Every morning in Villisca begins the same way, quiet, ordinary, a town that learned to live beside the unanswered. The axe is still there, the hand that held it, we never proved whose it was. Kelly died in 1930. He never confessed again. He took whatever he knew into the ground with him. 8 names, 8 stones, 8 people who went to sleep in Villisca, Iowa, on June 9, 1912. The lamps burned all night inside that house. They found no one in the morning. The truth burned longer. The porch swing still moves in the morning wind. No one has sat in it since June of 1912. We know everything that happened in that house. We still don't know who walked through the back door. The hallway is still there. The doors are still closed. Some questions are not solved. They simply endure. A child's shoes beside a bed, still placed neatly, as if whoever left them believed they were coming back. Who killed the Moore family? In 112 years, not one court has answered that question. Not one. Tell us what you think happened. The case is still open, and that house is still standing, still watching.